Everybody, how's it going? This is Brandon Griffin, aka the Realty Resource, bringing you another edition of the Rooster. It's my weekly real estate update, and we'll jump right into it. This is the week ending Friday, June 12th. Colorado's market right now is on fire. We are catching up with where we should have been really after the showing moratorium that we had for a little while, and it's going gangbusters. We're seeing basically that the showings right now are surpassing last year at the same time, even without COVID, which means now our under contracts are surpassing 2019 levels, and our closings are just now about to start catching up because each one precedes the last. New listings are also just starting to match up with 2019, but we're missing about 4,000 listings from that period where we just basically put a pause. I think that pent-up demand is gonna flush out, and we'll probably see an extension of our normal season. We normally see stagnation and showings drop off and even prices start to drop, which happens every year in Colorado. We might see that happen later. So I think we're gonna see this kind of hot seller's market all the way through July. Also, one thing to note, this is local Colorado data, but actually it's an aggregate of all of Colorado's data, which means that in your specific area, it might be different. There are sub-markets, hyper-local markets that are going crazy right now with lots of multiple offers. And there's other areas where things are just kind of sitting right now. So if you want to know what your specific hyper-local market is like, please let me know and I will happily deliver that information to you and help you keep tabs on it. Applications were up quite a bit. States were up about 0.13% week over week. Not a huge difference, honestly. Really won't affect your purchasing power. However, what will is whether or not you can still qualify. Lending guidelines, we've talked about the liquidity crisis, have been changing weekly. Everyone's kind of trying to figure out who's going to wind up paying if the people paying the mortgage in the first place don't have to because of forbearance, which is another thing we've covered. So because of that, they're taking on less risk, which means they're being a little bit more strict. Fannie Mae's change that happened yesterday, where self-employed borrowers have much stricter qualifications now, and you have to have different documents to back it up, profit and loss statements. If you're selling, your agent should really be on top of vetting the lender and the borrower that is bringing you an offer, because you want to make sure that they've got everything they need. And you're a buyer, you want to make sure that your lender has everything they need from you and that they're up to date, and see if it changes your qualification. Because again, the rate changing a little bit probably won't, but the way that they verify your income, especially as a self-employed borrower, that could really change your picture. So Chairman Jerome Powell, I think I said Colin Powell last week, I apologize. Jerome Powell said that basically on Wednesday, there's no plan to raise the Federal Reserve rate, at least until 2022. So this is not what determines the mortgage interest rate. But the Fed is committed to buying these mortgage-backed securities, kind of like what we talked about in the liquidity crisis explanation, which should keep mortgage rates, for the most part, stable. These next three kind of all come together, and they affect sentiment, consumer sentiment. So you can see that consumer sentiment is actually up. And a lot of it has to do with, these next 2 points. So Moderna is one of the first ones that I've talked about before. There's also AstraZeneca, who is, got, I guess, a horse in the race, if you will, and Johnson & Johnson. So the government is funding these. On average, it used to take 10 years to truly develop a vaccine, but we've got better technology, better funding, less regulation. And what's happening is instead of doing one phase, then the next phase, then the next phase, they're actually doing them in parallel because they have the funds and the ability to do so, which is how we're able to kind of fast track this. So they're really hoping to be able to get this out, as soon as next year. There's a really good video on that article about the risk reward of fast tracking this development of vaccines. So I'd say check that out. The link will be in the description below. Another article from the Wall Street Journal showed that the unemployment fell in May. A lot of people were expecting the employment to continue to go up, but it went from 14.7% in April down to 13.3% in May. This is great news, and it did actually cause the stock market to take a jump up as stock prices surged. It's still going to be a slow and uncertain recovery and probably take a long time, especially if a second wave hits, or in the midst of some civil unrest as well. There's essentially an eviction moratorium bill, which means that renters don't have to pay their rent, won't get kicked out of their place. Also, the people that own those properties, the landlords, and 55% of them are very small investors. They don't have a lot of financial means. So with this new bill, the way that it's currently being proposed is that the renters wouldn't really have to say anything or prove any hardship related to COVID, which means that the landlord then, which is not receiving any rent and probably has a mortgage payment as well, they're likely not going to be able to apply for the forbearance programs that we've been talking about. So now they're stuck. And want to read the actual bill itself, check out the link in the description below. That's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will bring you some more next week, and please stay safe, stay sane, and have a good one. Bye.